Hello and welcome to another DIY tutorial brought to you by myself, Ryan, your DIY guy. On today's episode, we're going to be building this amazing raised wooden planter box, which is an awesome addition to your outdoor patio and provides much needed privacy in your backyard. Well, let's get on to it. Onto all the tools and materials we'll require for this DIY application. Of course, we've chosen the preferred plants or shrubs that we want, and we've chosen two types of stain for our wooden planks, which we'll require as well, and then a weed mat that'll house all the potting soil, a tape measure and a pencil, as well as some wooden screws to secure everything together, and then a hand stapler, and of course our potting soil to fill up the planter. For the tools, we are using a cordless drill as well as a circular saw, but if you don't have a circular saw, a hand saw works just as well. First up, we lay our plants out in the manner that we'll be planting them to give us an approximate length of our overall planter size. We eventually used 90 centimeters as our length, and we cut it to about 40 centimeters wide. And this was plenty enough room for our plants, as well as not to make the overall planter too bulky, but it depends on your application, so choose what works in your space. And then we can go ahead and start cutting up all our pieces to size and start with the assembly process. Once all of the larger rectangles have been cut and assembled, we can go ahead and cut some of the corner braces using this 40 by 40 millimeter dimensional lumber. We'll also be using this lumber as a spacer in between each of the rectangular pieces, and this just gives a consistent gap in between each of the rectangular pieces going right around. Once we've inserted those spaces, we can clamp the entire unit together just to ensure it doesn't move on you when you secure your corner braces in place. Once the basic structure is in place, we can go ahead and secure the bottom base, which doesn't need to be completely sealed because it is just going to contain our weed guard that will hold our soil together in its entirety. And then we can move on to the leg assembly. Now for the vertical leg assembly, we're going to turn the entire unit upside down to make it easier to work with. Mark out where we're going to secure our piece of wood to ensure that it is perfectly plumb, and then secure it with those wooden screws we mentioned earlier. Once all four pieces are in place, we can flip the unit right side up and then secure our horizontal bracing. First at the bottom, as you see over here, and we are toe nailing each of the screws into the vertical piece of wood, which adds much more strength just to keep it rigid for longer. If you find any pieces of wood that are bowed, you can utilize the clamp once again just to bring them closer together to make handling them much easier. As you can see, it closes the gap quite easily and allows you to secure the wood screws securely in place so that everything is flush. Here's a view of the entire piece now assembled, and we've also added horizontal pieces to the length of each of those vertical braces just to complete the overall look, because this will be a different color. But before we get to color, we can get to our most favorite part, which is sanding. Well, let's hop to it. For the sanding of the planter box, we're using two kinds of sandpaper. The first being 80 grit sandpaper, which is more coarse and will take off a lot of the burrs and uneven edges. That's followed up with 100 grit sandpaper, which will give it a smooth finish. And then once you're done, make sure to wipe all of the wooden surfaces down in preparation for the stain, and also add a drop sheet or drop cloth below the planter to protect your patio surface. For the stain, we're utilizing a grip seal wood sealant, which seals and protects your wood from the elements, and this color is a mahogany. It gives the wood a beautiful rich color. And we're also going to be using a black stain for the outer frame, which will hold the actual planter up, which will give a brilliant contrast with our green shrubs. We utilize a roller for a quicker application, but you will need a finer brush just to get into all the tight nooks and crannies and make sure you've covered all your surfaces. Once you've added 2 coats of the stain to your planter and all the surfaces are covered, we can go ahead and add our weed guard to the inside of our planter. And you can see this weed guard allows water to pass through, but it will hold your soil in place. We simply cut it oversized to fit inside our planter, and we can staple it around the top of the edges just to hold it open whilst we add our potting soil into the mix before we go ahead and start adding our plants. Once all of your plants are firmly potted in place, we can go ahead and finish off this beautiful planter box utilizing some crushed gravel stone. We chose a large format, brilliant white gravel stone, which adds an absolutely stunning contrast to our green plants as well as the brown and black stain. This was a super simple DIY which we thoroughly enjoyed, and the end result turned out absolutely amazing. Let us know in the comments down below if you enjoyed it just as much, or tell us what you would do differently. We'd love to hear your feedback. Now, of course, you can get all of these products from your local Leroy Merlin store, and it is super simple. You can even go online, check out, and go and collect it 2 hours later. So what are you waiting for? Make sure to add your comments down below. Make sure you're following Leroy Merlin, and I'll see you next time.